All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Flip Junkie podcast. I've got a good friend, Paul Del Pozo, on the show today. Looking forward to starting out.
What's going on, Danny?
Hey, Paul, 2018.
Yeah,
A good friend.
year.
Yeah, it's going to be a hell of a year. And we've been chatting a little bit about, what we're doing and how we're doing it and setting these goals. And I want to talk with you, Paul, today, with everybody out there listening, sort of, how you got started in this business and then how you're getting through the ups and downs that we all face in the business and setting your goals and focusing on those goals and achieving those throughout the year. Sure.
Well, thanks for having me on, man. It's really awesome to be on here. I tell you, your podcast has been, very important to me, over the last 2 years since I got into this business. And so it's actually an honor to be on here, to be able to kind of share what I've been doing, to put this out there to folks to help them, maybe they're on a similar path and they can relate and can help them that little bit. So thanks, man. Well, I got into real estate about 2 years ago. It was one of those things where I had been kind of looking for my next step. I'll kind of go back a little bit. I had been running a business for about 2 years. And I didn't, to be honest with you, I didn't really have that much business experience. I didn't really, have solid foundations, but, I had that dream and we got it going. And in that business experience, I started to learn things, learn that I didn't know a lot of things I thought I knew. Long story short on that business, failed. And I got to the point where I was looking for that next move, next step. And, lo and behold, how, the internet is, you put it out there and things start coming back to you. Somehow some real estate stuff started popping up, on my feed. Interested, I've always been interested in real estate. I've watched shows, of course, but, you always see these things and, there's more to it than what you see on TV. So, I start kind of, snooping around, seeing, what some of these, these ads, some of these people, presenting, the things. So I signed up for a webinar and I had a drive across the state. So I had a couple hours to kill. And I listened to this webinar about wholesaling. And, what it was and how people were getting properties with no money down and that whole story. So that planted a seed, that drive really got me thinking, what is this? Let's start looking. So I started looking into, real estate, wholesaling, what's out there. You get on, YouTube, you start looking at as many resources and you just start looking at everything almost, obsessively. And you start kind of smelling out what are good, positive, resources, putting out information that you can really grab onto and use and apply. And you start finding some podcasts, like I said, I found yours, which was, very beneficial and finding pieces and applying them to growing my new fledgling business here. Yeah. You start making those inroads. But also there very quickly, I found my first deal very quickly. So, that kind of also gave me a lot of gasoline in the beginning. It allowed me to kind of know that this business was real. It's not just something that you see on these ads or online. I had beginner's luck, right? I went out and started door knocking, pulled a list of preforeclosures, went out there.
Luck by doing that.
I'm sorry?
You said you made your own luck by doing that, going out and door knocking, doing the stuff.
Yeah, it was one of these things where I didn't really know how to get deals, but I knew if I went out and tried to get it myself, physically grab it and bring it in, I could maybe do it. So I did. I pulled a list and, went out, started knocking on doors. I was terrified, I still am today. I go out there and knock on doors and I start thinking of all these crazy things that might happen. And, but the craziest thing that happened was this guy opened the door and he said, yeah, he needs to sell. Wow. Okay, great. So we started talking. I got this property on the contract and got that deal done. It was the first wholesale deal, and it became real. So that was my entry into the business. I started, going after the next steps, and found myself now trying to call myself a real estate investor, which was tough because, real estate investor, I always had this idea of, this rich guy buying buildings and, this weird idea of what a real estate investor was. It definitely wasn't me, it wasn't this guy. So I had a hard time going into, events and places at first, and networking, and really starting to tell people, hey, I'm an investor, I'm a real estate investor. So that was like one obstacle I think I had,
I think
right out of the gate, really starting to feel comfortable in what I was trying to do.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common. I would say, I would figure at least 90% of people have that struggle with that, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, even going around telling people that's what you do, that you buy houses, I think some people struggle with that and they end up being the undercover real estate investor, right? You just,
Sure.
It's just one of those weird things. It's weird to call yourself that. It's interesting that you brought that up, that was a big thing keeping you from, keeping it from being easy for you.
Yeah. It's, people say fake it till you make it, but I didn't even know what I was faking, so it was weird. But I guess like anything I've done, you go in and you make the best of it, and you assess the situations. I would go to, REIA events, REIA, we call it REIA down here in Broward County, start meeting people, and I guess just getting more comfortable, right? Being in that environment. It's a new environment. I think it, whether it's real estate or if it's anything, at the end of the day, it was just a new environment, new arena for me. And I wasn't yet familiar with it. And I think that for me, that's with a lot of situations in life. Like I'll initially get into them and it's like you're a little bit nervous and timid and you're not sure, but you start meeting, talking, and just being, I guess, honest and open about why you're there, what you're doing, and you start meeting the right people. And that's kind of what happened there in the beginning for me with real estate and going out there to network and let people know what I was doing.
Yeah. So as a wholesaler, like you got into this wanting to be the wholesaler, not wanting to buy the house, fix it up and sell it. Is that still what you're doing, or what is your...
Well, I got into this to just make, like, initially because I needed to make money. I didn't know, I'll be a rehabber, I'll be a wholesaler, I'll be whatever, I can make money on, right? That's the idea at first. But I guess, you take the initial route of least resistance. So in that case, in the first deal, that was a wholesale deal. So that's just kind of the path that I've been going down. And then I think there's just some market, conditions also that keep me in that lane now at this point. But yeah, I mean, I didn't really have an idea. I was just trying to take it all in, figure out what all this is, and then just try to figure out, all right, now that I know kind of what it is, let's pick a direction and start going.
Yeah. So you still find yourself as excited about learning things in this business as you did, a couple of years ago when you first got into it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited every day, man. I get excited about stuff. I try to stay excited about stuff because, staying excited is really kind of what drives you. Once you're not excited, then, what are you doing, right? Then you're just going to find it boring. You're going to lose interest, whether it's a job or a business or a project or, even a hobby or whatever. Right. But I find on a regular, new things that I'm doing either in the business as far as like technology or like strategies, or even networking. I find that all exciting. I mean, I meet new people all the time now in the real estate space because I'm talking about it a lot more. So that's exciting too. Yeah,
and you. I think whenever we last talked at Justin's event, and I see it back behind you too on the 2018 on the big Post-it paper back there is focus, right? Because you're excited about a bunch of different stuff, but that also becomes a problem whenever it's not focused. It's like finding out about all these different strategies and all this kind of thing. And then next thing you know, your mind's scrambled with not knowing which way to go. And it's the whole diagram from that book, Essentialism. Have you read that book?
I have not. It's on my list. Yeah, I'm just trying
Yeah,
to meet my
awesome
phone.
book. And
Yeah,
I, when we
it's definitely on my list. I hear that. It's an awesome book. Yeah.
and it talks about focus and energy, right? We all have a certain amount of energy. And I put this graphic, it's in the book, in our yearly planning meeting, because I wanted that to be sort of the, 2018 for the software company, the word, because I always have kind of a word for the year, is intentional. And so it's making sure that we have a plan that we're going to stick to, and everything that we're doing is intentional to fit that plan. Because in the past, we would get excited about different things and run off and get derailed, and we'd be off on tangents and then look up and say, oh crap, what have we been doing for 6 months? We've been, focusing on this thing over here, but we completely forgot about this other thing we wanted to do.
Sure.
And, that gets into all of this, but the graphic that he's got is a circle and it's got little arrows going off of it.
Yeah.
And I think I did a recent podcast episode about this where I showed this in the video. So, but it's got little arrows going off of it all around it. And then he's got another one, a circle, and then one arrow going real far up.
Mm.
And it's like when you stay focused, you get all that accomplished, right? You get all that distance and progress. And it's the same thing for real estate investors, like focusing in all different areas of the business too, focusing on what strategy you're focused on, not trying to pick up lease options, rentals, and, owner finance and wholesales and wholetails and bird dogs and all this kind of stuff. And then it's also like a part of the marketing, right? Guys that do really well in this business, nail it and then scale it, to use Justin Williams' term. And, you focus on some key things that you become the expert at, and you go in nervously and figure it out, but you spend time to figure it out, and then you have success with it and stay focused on those.
Yeah. I mean, definitely staying focused on the some things is important. And also having a real understanding of what it takes, right? And the time it takes. I think when I started, I was excited, bright-eyed. I didn't really know effort, scale of effort, resources, or the scale of resources to move as fast as you want. And when you start realizing those things, then you can really kind of reset your expectations based on your available time, resources, energy, or whatever it may be, to know how long it's going to take you to get to where you want to go. That made a big difference for me. Because in the beginning I was just trying to race. Let's get this done. Let's get this, that, boom, 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 boom. Trying to do everything, and I wasn't focused. I mean, I was focused enough, knowing I was going down this certain way, but I wasn't. I was trying too many of these things that I was learning about, and I was getting anxious that I wasn't getting things done because I needed it now. I mean, let's be honest. I needed money. I needed, my family needed income. I've had a lot of life changes. We've recently got married. So there's a lot of things there that were going on. So my expectations for this path of real estate investing for myself were not set properly in the beginning. But you start to change. You start to see that, I guess, the longer you stay in and the more you dig in. Because I think probably what happens to a lot of people, I mean, you can maybe tell me again, you talk to a lot of folks, once that struggle starts kicking in, they bounce, they leave, they can't make it, but I've been fortunate enough to be able to look at those things, or the struggles, or, the realities. When you realize sometimes, some things, sometimes they're enough to scare you and leave. That's it. Right. Mm-hmm. So these things I've realized and have reinforced my want to dig in and continue forward.
It's huge. And I think that, people do struggle with, and we did for the longest time, probably longer than I would want to admit, that feeling of, I'm not doing this fast enough. I'm not doing as many deals as I want to do fast enough. I hear about all the success from other people, and, the perception is that they did it fast. They did it overnight, or even within 1 year, just because you hear of about a couple stories, of people having that sort of success. And then, it just becomes this thing where you feel like that's a normal thing when it's not a normal thing. It takes time. And in this business, with this high dollar stuff, you could get burned very quickly. And so doing it as fast as most people want to do, it's probably not the smartest thing to do anyway, because you start to, do thinner deals because you're trying to get certain number of houses done or deals done, then you're going to get burned because the market's going to turn
Yeah.
at some point.
Yeah, or you're trying to keep up with what you see out there, right? Because of the internet, right? I mean, it's a society thing, right? We see a lot of things. We see, things that are presented to us that might not necessarily be what they are, or they actually really are, but we start measuring up to what we see, and that'll kind of mess us up a little bit too. So you have to kind of really just stay focused in your lane and not really measure yourself with the other things that you see out there as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I was talking to somebody just a couple months ago about children that are highly competitive. Because my son, he just turned 6 years old, and in soccer he is insanely competitive. So much so that he even competes with the people on his own team, and gets angry when they do better than he does. And he's really good, but he is so super hyper competitive. And so I was talking to somebody about that, and they said, yeah, the best thing to do with situations like that is always reinforce that they're competing with themselves. It's always like, how much can they get themselves better?
Sure.
And trying to focus, and it's exactly what you're saying. It's focusing, staying in your lane, and not really worrying so much about what's going on. Setting your own goals, that are somewhat realistic at least.
Yeah.
And then, the part that I think that even now, I think we struggle with is the gratitude part of it, or seeing how far we've come and how much we've accomplished, and saying, man, we're kicking butt, but it's always like we want more and more and more, living in the future instead of, looking at what accomplishments, no matter how small, even if you're just getting started in this business, getting 20 bandit signs put out,
yeah,
or making those phone calls is something that you should reward yourself for, and say, man, I'm really doing great. I'm making progress.
Yeah. And, and also embracing like the losses too. I tell you, I've taken it to the teeth a couple of times this year with deals, or, projects, or whatever, I had going on. But, each one of those times, makes you see what you did wrong, and then you embrace it, and then you apply and you grow, because, it's important, whether it's losing a deal, or, making a bad call, or whatever it may be. I started, recently, not recently, but I've always had my old mindset of what I used to do. I used to be a competitive bodybuilder, and, that the need for the repetition and the consistency, of things, whether it was diet or workout regimen, those are the things I keep kind of pulling back, to try to apply in this business. And it's really kind of helped me kind of frame up where I need to be, and structure my goals. And, it's as silly as that, as silly as just, working out and relating that to working out.
I don't think it's silly at all.
It's the same parallel, for me. And I think others out there, it's staying focused on what you want, even when you don't see change. It's funny, just recently I made a post on social media, and it was 19-year-old me, and in the 13-year later progression of me, becoming a competitive bodybuilder, and that change, right? And it's like 13 years, right? When I started that, 13 years for me to think that I was going to be in my 30s, no way, that'd be forever. What am I going to do? This goal, this thing that takes forever. But, I stuck to it. I did it. And I had success after a while. So, looking back on that, that's the reason I posted that, because I was thinking on that, looking back on that, it felt like forever. It felt like, I was never going to get to, the goal, the idea of the picture of in my mind of what I wanted. But I got there, right? And I was chipping at it, little by little. So same thing with this, in this business, each year I'm chipping at it, building my network, connecting with people, learning from lost deals, learning from won deals, the repetition of that. It's, the same parallel for me as it is and was in the gym.
No, I love that you bring that up, because what I'm thinking about whenever you mention that, with the workout and the structure and the order and the repetition, is that you have the plan and the process laid out. And it's a matter of consistently, as you have on the back behind you there, consistency equals results, of executing that, right? And then finding, as you do it, tweaking the process where you find that it needs to be tweaked.
Yeah.
But you're always following that plan. And my word for my personal goals this year is organized and in control. And it's kind of weird. You think that would be something that you always focus on, but I realized that I had sort of gotten away from that over the last couple of years.
Yeah. I mean, we slip, we're human, we have things that we're strong at, that we're good at, and we slip off sometimes, but those things are still there. Those are still qualities and traits that we have. We got to just check ourselves and bring that back forward and, apply them, I mean, I have times when I slip, whether it's, business, personal, gym, we all slip, but you got to put yourself back in check and go forward. It's one of these things where you want to always be going forward, but you don't always go forward. You'll have backward moments. But as long as that forward trajectory, constantly forward and upward, you're winning, in my opinion.
Nice. I like that. So how do you do that, right? Is it with setting goals? Like how do you know which way is forward, which way is sideways, which way is backwards?
It takes a lot of assessment of yourself and your situation, and the right environment too. Where are you in life for that particular goal? Whether it's real estate investing or, a sport, fitness, whatever it is. Sometimes we get a chaos going on, and that's going to keep you from, going after your goals. But if you can be in a period of time where it lends itself to that particular goal, I guess you got to just think about that end picture and start visualizing it. The thought of making something appear and happen, by thinking of it, really does exist. I mean, you think about it and you believe it and you keep thinking that's what you want to be, it's going to happen. You keep surrounding yourself with like-minded, people, and like-minded positive people, I think is important too, because, there are a lot of people out there that might have same ideas and goals, but they're not generally positive. So you want to stay with those positive people, and then just staying at it, really having passion for it. And those are the things, consistency, passion. I mean, those things that just drive you. If you don't have that for something, then you're not going to win. You're not going to achieve, what you want, I think.
Yeah, I know. That's awesome. Yeah. Always thinking about it, because you are what you always think about, and surrounding yourself. And I love that you mentioned that, not the negative people, not the people that you go and you meet them at a conference and somebody's talking on stage and they're knocking what the person's talking about. And it's like, why, what purpose does that serve? Or the whole, jealousy thing of where you see somebody's success and you got to bring them down, instead of saying, hey, they did it, I can do it too. Let me figure out how they did it so I can do it, or I can do it faster than them because they're sharing with me how they did that and the mistakes that they made and all that. So, but have you already set your 2018 goals? Do you have everything laid out?
Yeah, I do. I'm relocating to the other side of the country, but we'll continue to invest here in South Florida. So pretty much it's been, setting up structure for that to happen. I have goals, number goals. And here's another thing, let me throw this in there. As far as numbers and goals, and everybody talks about that, right? Like, oh, I want to, do 200 deals or $300 million or whatever it may be. Sometimes in the beginning, those numbers throw you off, right? Because they're so unrelatable. So, the goals, in my mind are somewhat more relatable. And I also don't just put them out there, or I don't like to talk about that number, because it doesn't mean anything, because a $5,000 or a $10,000 deal, might be a lot more because of that experience of what happened. You know what I'm saying? What I'm trying to convey there?
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. And it's about staying in your lane and not competing with other people. It's your goal for yourself, and what you're trying to accomplish. And I did want to mention really quick, I think it's episode 18. For people listening, we have a great podcast episode at flippingjunkie.com/18, episode 18. That was 5 steps to setting and actually achieving goals. Great podcast episode that you can go back to and look at how Marcus Maloney and I talked about setting goals, and it's very relevant for beginning of 2018 if you haven't written out your goals. But what is your process for tackling, the goal setting process? Like what is your process for doing that? You just sit down and have a cup of tea or something? And
I tell you, I've gotten comfortable with taking time to think. And that might sound nuts, what do you mean, think? But I used to feel like I was wasting time. I used to feel like, any period of time where I would just sit back and just analyze and think was wasting time. If I wasn't physically coming, going, lifting, doing something, those types of activities for me were wasting time. But I've gotten comfortable with that. And now, I'll take moments, weekly, monthly, even daily to just kind of assess what's going on. What do we need to do? So it's always kind of, I'm always working on the goals. I don't think it's just because it's New Year's or it was the end of the year. Yeah, I have big picture goals, but there's these little tasks and these little mini goals that I'm chasing regularly, whether it's, call amounts or talking to people, increase the volume of that, or, things like that.
Okay. So what, do you have a process to make sure that you're following those goals and breaking them up into like quarterly and then monthly and weekly sort of things to achieve those goals?
Yeah, I've been, lists have been big for me. I'm writing things, as you can see over here, writing things everywhere. I have notes that I keep. I have lists, that I make for myself. Just staying more organized has been really important for myself in getting those goals, putting them down, written so I can look at them. I have things here on the wall you can't see behind the camera that I look at, regularly, and one simple one, it says, "You got this, Paul." Just reassuring myself that I got this, I got this, because there's days, man, I don't feel it,
yeah,
but I have to remind myself. So, making those things, front and center in your life are important. Same thing with, fitness or any of those things, just writing them down, tracking some things. That's important. And accountability too, talking to people, talking to you, Danny. I've had conversations with you about things I want to do, and just putting that out there so you can stay accountable, because a lot of us have ideas, right? Great ideas. Maybe we don't pursue them because they seem very bold. But we should put them out there. And, if we have, good people in our team or in our corner, they should challenge us to go after these bigger goals and take that next step.
Yeah. So having, accountability partner, somebody that knows what you're trying to do, and then getting the help to stay on track for that. Yeah, that's big. I think Melissa's always been really good for me about that, because we share, our goals with each other and stay on track. And I don't know, honestly, I've really kind of struggled the last couple of years of sticking to, my goals. Like I haven't really looked like I kind of know where I'm going, and I have those goals written out at the beginning of the year, but then, I quickly get overwhelmed. And I think this last year was like, I put way too many things on there, and it kind of derailed me and then got me demotivated. And so I just kind of like, well, let me get done what I can get done. And, I look back at it this year going, man, what a mistake. Like that was like, let's tweak the process, right? This goal process. And even after having done podcast episodes like that other one, like we get so busy, and I'm like you, like I want to have action. I want to have progress, and taking the time to stop and analyze things and plan things, seems wrong sometimes, because we're not like push, getting progress, getting things marked off our to-do list. And, creating a bigger to-do list seems like what's going to happen if I sit and think about it. But really what I'm doing this year is, is getting stuff off of my list, and really figuring out what's the most important thing. This is all the stuff I want to do. Now let me get rid of most of it.
Yeah.
And figure out what the bigger thing is. And then, really focus on those. And then, one thing already that I've done that I meant to do last year, and I guess I didn't, I don't remember, was I got my whole year's stuff done. And then I said, okay, what of this stuff, what am I going to do this first quarter to get towards those things? And I immediately set that apart. Then I said, okay, January, what am I going to do in January?
Yeah.
And then, so now I have the stuff. I don't need to worry about the rest of the year yet. I'm focused on January. And then every Sunday, my week planner gets pulled out and I work towards those things for January. And so I know what I need to do. And if I feel like I'm going to get overwhelmed or start doing more, I think it's going to be where I go back and adjust and look at the end of the month and say, did I get this stuff done?
Yeah.
If I didn't, I need to get rid of some of this other stuff so I don't get derailed.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you have to always assess, right? You have to always kind of see where you're at, because you don't want to clutter up your path and getting forward because you have all these things and we get overwhelmed. I mean, you might be like me, where when there's just so much to do, you're like, oh my God, what's going on? And I find it best to just kind of avoid that, and try to find ways to best avoid putting yourself in a situation where you're not at your best. So that's just kind of learning yourself, I think, and just kind of just that involvement of learning who you are, and what, triggers you and how you react to it. Even psychologically, how you react to it. So if you know these things, you're aware of these things, you can just kind of avoid those situations or try to,
Mm-hmm. No, it's big. Yeah. And getting to know yourself, to me, what that means, now that you said that, is sort of, what brings me energy, what gives me energy versus drains energy from me. And, there's so many things that we're doing, and it's like, sometimes you got to stop and say, why am I doing all this?
Yeah.
At the point where you get overwhelmed and you're just like trying to like get through the day because you got so much to do, is time to stop and say, what am I doing all this for? Maybe I've gotten a little bit away from my intentions,
Yeah.
Or what I'm trying to do, and being honest with yourself. And a lot of that, I think, does come from seeing what other people are doing and trying to get to that level yourself, and then wondering
trying to keep up, right? I mean, it's good on one hand because it encourages you, but you don't want to get discouraged when you either get there and it's not what it really was, or when you can't get there as fast as you think you could or should have.
Yeah, absolutely. How many people are on your team? Is it still you and Marco? Do you guys have other people on your team?
We have some VAs, that do some stuff, but mainly right now, as of today, it's just us. But like I said, with me heading out west, having somebody on the ground is important, and that's what I'm working on right now. Working. I've really kind of just worked on the process here. Now I got the process, fairly worked out, and now teaching that and getting somebody on board is kind of where I'm at. But yeah, trying to keep it lean. I've had other instances in other businesses where you try to bring on too many pieces, too many people, and then you're paying a lot of money or whatever it may be, and that gets overwhelming too. Mm-hmm. So just trying to keep that at bay also. Yeah,
it's big. Something that we dealing with over this last year too is with the software company. We've grown pretty big. I think that 15 people now on this side of the software. And, as we grew over this last year, I think we tripled how many people we had. And what I'm realizing is that we've had people from early on that are now doing things that they didn't know that they would be doing, and have these roles. And it's kind of unclear about who's supposed to do what for a lot of things. And so a big thing after our yearly meeting that we did just a couple of weeks ago over at my house, had the whole team come over there, and we just sat for the whole day and talked through everything. Like, what did we do well last year? What are we doing this year? What are our goals and how are we going to get there? Right. With input from everybody. Everybody's a part of it. And a big thing. And now this is funny because this is something that Melissa's been hounding me on for probably at least 6 months, probably more. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah, I know I need to do that. And after that meeting is like, wow, no, she's right. Like, I need to sit down and spell out exactly what everybody's role and responsibilities are.
Yeah.
Because we sort of know what we're doing. And what was interesting as I was doing that, as I was sitting down and saying, okay, this role, like here's the org chart, right? And some people are in multiple places right now, but eventually that's going to be its own position. And all the responsibilities for those different things, I realized that some people are in some of these roles that they shouldn't be in, and you don't see it until you map out what those things are. And so I encourage people that are growing a team, even though it's only so many people right now, think about what all those positions are and have the roles and responsibilities for each of those positions, even though you might have one person in 3 or 4 of those spots. But know that eventually that's probably going to need to be somebody else, where they're just focused on that one thing.
Absolutely. Good advice, man.
But so it's helped a lot, and it helped provide a lot of clarity. I was kind of thinking, well, everybody kind of knows what they need to do. I don't, but it was really more of just sitting down and writing out that document. It didn't seem appealing to me as why I hadn't done it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, but that's like anything, there's things that we don't do and we wonder why haven't we, but just got to check yourself.
Right. So now what's this flex and flip? What is this? Because I'm actually titling this episode Flex and Flip. So we should probably discuss what that is.
Sure. So flex and flip, I think flex and flip originally was just my way to tie in what I was doing in my life to myself. And, of course, because of social media, you start tagging or hashtagging. And I started doing that, but it started to kind of evolve, right? And flexing, obviously, you think flex, you start thinking muscles and, people flexing. But it's more to me about that, because I'm not just about that. I like other sports. I like other activities. We do, some mountain climbing, my wife and I. So it's really about just, the sport and the pushing yourself, and working yourself and working the muscle and yourself, right? The flex. And then the flip was, I'm flipping properties, flipping, contracts and also just life in general, or business. And, that's kind of the thoughts that started kind of swirling around about a year ago. And as the years progressed and I've kind of embraced my past of, bodybuilding and that whole world that I was in, and really finding that's kind of my unique thing in my networks of people that I find myself with now. I was maybe a little bit more reserved about leading with that, about who I am in past. But, over this year, I've embraced it more. Hey, look, this is what I've done. This is my accomplishment in that. And I use, mindset of that to achieve what I want in this. So I've started to just kind of become more vocal about it and present it. So what Flex and Flip or flexandflip.com is a site where I'm going to just kind of present people that are leading their business life, through fitness. What are they doing? What are they doing and why are they doing it? And how is that impacting their life and their business life? Because it all has a common thread in there. And I'd like to, see who's out there. I'd like to know who, uses that same kind of mindset to drive them forward. I'd like to know them, and I'd like to share that with people, because I think there's other people out there that might struggle with, fitness themselves. I've met them. They are some of the most successful people in real estate ever, not ever, but out there. But they can't dial in that fitness part for whatever reason. But they have the tools already. They have the mindset. They have the drive. They've achieved success. Why can't they take control of themselves physically, and healthy and why, So it's all about really being able to feature, people and how they achieve that and bringing it to people and connect and just kind of helping people drive forward, through that arena.
No, I like that idea. Yeah. It's really dialed in niche, real estate
Very
investor
niche.
and fitness.
Yeah.
And super cool. I lifted weights this morning, first time in probably 2 months. Man, it was brutal, but it felt great. It felt great to get out there. And of course, it's like freezing here, 20 something degrees, but
How important is fitness to you, Danny? Like your everyday routine. I know you and I have talked about this. I mean, is it a routine for you
yeah, no, it's a
or
routine. Yeah. Whenever I'm, it's a, it's cyclic for me. I'll probably be on 4 to 6 months, and then maybe like a month I fall off the wagon, but then I'm back on.
okay, good.
But I've been pretty consistent. It's usually about 6 days a week.
And how does that help you feel with your everyday fight in life?
Oh, big time. I mean, it's like the way I feel whenever I get up and after I exercise, because I do it first thing in the morning. I wake up at 5.
Sure.
I'm still doing Miracle Morning. It's over 2 years now, I think, that I've been doing that. 5 o'clock, get up and work out as part of that. It's about 45 minutes. And after that, I'm charged. I'm ready to go. And the last 2 months or so, I had a slight injury, so I wasn't really lifting weights. And I just felt bad, man. I started eating bad. Whenever I don't work out, I start eating horribly too. Like I start drinking Cokes again. I eat pizza. And
How do you think that relates into your businesses? I mean, do you think that takes is there any effect?
Energy wise, I think there is. And it's a part of, I think, the whole organized and being in control. Whenever we feel like, we're taking it easy, and we want to take it easy, but then we take it too far. And so we find that, we stop and say, man, I've been taking it a little bit too easy, for a long time, and you don't feel good about it. Like, it feels good when you're making progress and you're organized, right? And you're in control of things. And I think, whenever I'm doing those things, when I'm not working out, when I'm not eating right, I'm not in control and I'm not feeling as good as I can.
Yeah.
And it's like something from the Brian Buffini podcast. I love that podcast. If you haven't heard it, check it out, Brian Buffini. But he was talking about like this whole, I think it was like at some conference or something, his talk, but he was talking about like, Netflix binge every now and again is fine. But when you start doing it all the time, that's not good.
Sure.
And I've done that before where I've had a couple weeks where I'm just like, man, I'm getting home early and start watching Netflix or something. And after, like, at first it's like, it's relaxing, you get away from stuff. But when you keep doing it, you start feeling bad. You're not organized, you're not making progress. And so I think in life, we all need to always be working towards something, pushing towards something, and have those moments of relaxation and fun spread out in there, but not all the time.
Yeah, it's all about that balance, and I have a lot more balance in my life. I mean, in my past, especially when I was, competing in bodybuilding, I mean, that takes all your focus, right? And that's all you're doing. Your blinders on, you're focusing on that. But being able to take, the tools from that type of mindset and being able to apply it to a more balanced lifestyle is very key, because we have families, we have, things that pop up. We can't always every single day, even though it's our routine, we can't always every single day do the things that we plan out because things happen. So it's just being able to just assess, just being able to stay on point and look at yourself and self-check yourself, regularly to make sure how far you've slipped or if you're slipping so that you can get yourself back on track, and I think on a physical level, I think it's important, to be at your optimal, self, not achieving success in real estate and neglecting your health or your nutrition or any of that, because then you've conquered this giant mountain of success on the real estate front or business front, but you're a mess. You might not last long. You might not be healthy enough to enjoy it. And that's kind of where I'm thinking these days. How do I stay balanced in my my chase for success in real estate, and also stay balanced in my chase and success of health and life and fitness. So it's really just trying to find that point where, you know, everything's balanced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's finding how that works best for you and what you want. And that's a huge point, because, you know, if you put your blinders on and you focus on, like you said, real estate, something else is going to suffer, and you might get that high success level that you set out to get,
Sure.
but feel empty about it, right? Because you're like, oh man, my relationships are in the dumps,
That's number one.
Yeah.
That's number one. I mean, your family, your support system, you know, that's, in my world, that's number one. I mean, the love and support from my wife and you know, my daughter. I mean, that's why I do everything, really. So if you start neglecting that, it doesn't work. I mean, I can tell you in the past, with any one thing I obsessed over and put all my effort, other things always were affected. In bodybuilding, affected. You know, relationships were tough because the blinders are on. You know, I've heard, you know, folks in business all the time. We hear about it. I mean, you know, people's, you know, relationships are affected because it's not balanced. They neglected that home front or, you know, whatever it may be. So I think balance is, you know, I'm about to throw balance on that board over there. Make sure I remember that throughout 2018. Make sure that's always there.
I've had some wild swings over the years, you know, both ways. You know, being super focused on building up flipping and doing all that stuff, then super focused on flying
Sure.
and having fun and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, over the last 2 years, well, actually really just over last year, it really hit me. You know, like I need to figure out a way to enforce the balance, you know, to be intentional and to really, like you said, you know, assess yourself and what you're doing and how you're doing it, but finding a way to do that and stay on top of it. So it's not something I think about and plan out once and then kind of fall off the rails, because it's a habit that we get into.
Sure.
And what I found that really works well for me, and obviously I try and I do this most every week. And this year that's like one of my top goals, is make sure I do this every week, is whenever I go to plan each week, the first thing that I do is put the things that matter most to me in my schedule for that week. So it's lunch with Melissa, it's teaching with the kids after I get home, doing things with them, and fun things, going flying, riding motorcycle, all that kind of stuff I put first. And then I go and look at my business stuff and say, okay, what do I need to get done this week? And then fill in the rest.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if we're just putting our business stuff on that planner every week and we're doing that stuff, and like you said, things happen during the day, if we don't have them scheduled in there, I already know about them, either we're going to be too wore out to think about and plan that stuff, or we're never just going to do it, you know? And so that's been a huge help for me. That, in addition to having a calendar and a calendar in my kitchen, not at the office, not anywhere else, in my kitchen. And I need a new one for this year. I was using one my daughter made for me last year, but I think I've mentioned this on the show before, but it's super helpful. And if you don't do this, I advise you to do it. And it's really all personal stuff. But what I do is I got sheets of color-coded stickers, little circles that are different colors. And I'll put a key on the calendar for the month. And I'll put workout, I'll put journal, I'll put, you know, all these things that I want to make sure that I do. Fun, you know, something with the kids, cook dinner or whatever. And I have all those things on there. And then every day I get to reward myself with doing those things. Now, obviously I don't do all of them every day, but I get to see my progress, and it builds motivation, and it builds like this whole thing where you're building this habit to do all these things that you're trying to make sure that you're always doing. And it's right there in the kitchen. Everybody can see it.
Yeah. I mean, this is the deal. I mean, tomorrow's not guaranteed, right? And any which day that we're stressed out about our business could be our last day. We just don't know. You know, life is fragile that way. So you have to remember to, you know, you said fun. I mean, that's important, you know, stop and have fun. It's not always about that chase and going forward. You know, you gotta appreciate the time with the beautiful things that you have around you. You know, those are, you know, really, really important things. You know, and these aren't things, you know, Danny, that people generally talk about in our real estate space. You know, everything that we talk about, you know, is, you know, about strategies, about, logistical things of marketing or whatnot. But a lot of this stuff is the stuff that people really should, talk about. It's the mental stuff, because that's the number one reason why we succeed or we fail. It's all right here. It's not because we have the wrong list or the wrong protein powder, both sides of the spectrum. Yeah. It's because, what's going on up here,
Absolutely. And I know that you live that too, because I get to see all the video and stuff, all your Hawaii trip and all that awesome stuff. So
I do, man. Look, I'm not the richest man in the world, far from it. But I try to live like I am the richest man, in experience and in love with my family. Because, like I say, tomorrow's not guaranteed, and I might not make it 20 years, 30 years from now, when I had envisioned all these things that were going to occur. So I'm going to do it now. And, that's obviously part of the reason why you get into real estate, right? To have that freedom, to be able to do those things. But even in the chase for that, it's still work. It's a lot of work. It's a ton of work to get good, or to get your business become good. So in that journey, you still have to try to have fun, even on those days that it just, everything is just tough.
Well, when you stop and think, the whole thing I've been thinking a lot about is I have everything I need and want right now. Today is a gift, and everything that I need and want, I have already. Enjoy it.
Yeah.
Not always living in the future. And I think this also was on the Buffini podcast I heard the other day, but he was talking about people that are depressed are living in the past, right? People that are stressed out are living in the future. It's like the only people content are the people living today.
Yeah.
Like living in today.
I had a good conversation with a buddy of mine the other day, and he mentioned, people just being addicted to chaos. Most people are just addicted to the craziness. So you got to stay away from that and those people, and just enjoy the beautiful things that are out there, man. That sounds kind of hokey, and it's not, it's really not.
No, it's not. No, I agree. And that's the big thing for 2018. I want to make sure, and I'd love to have you on. We'll have to remember for next year to see if we did live that and we focused on that and did achieve that and stay true to that. Because I think it's super important. It's the most important thing. If you don't know why you're doing something, and then doing those things while you're trying to achieve the stuff, it's sort of like the whole, I think Jim Rohn always used to say it, is when people don't give money. They're like, when I get a bunch of money, I'll give money.
Yeah.
Charity or whatever else. It's like, if you don't give $1,000 now, when you make $100,000, when you make 10 million, what makes you think you're going to give, whatever the amount is? It's like,
sure,
you can do it.
But you know what? I'd even challenge that. I'd say in some cases, people are trying to put out or give when they haven't even accomplished, and not because they shouldn't be giving, but just because they haven't even figured out themselves yet. So I think it's also important to just get that that ground under you, that foundation, and whatever it may be, whether it's business or anything, to really just get secure first before you're trying to save the world. I see that a lot. People are trying to, and we see that in real estate. People that are, jump into coaching, when they really shouldn't be coaching yet. It's one of those things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's got to be a good, solid foundation. You got to be able to do it comfortably, but planning out that 2018, sticking to it, making sure that you include fun and you flex and flip. Be sure to check out the website. Everybody listen out there. Paul's an awesome guy, and sure has got a lot of great material on there. And I'll put that in the show notes too. It'll be at flippingjunkie.com/98. But it's an easy website to remember. Just go check it out. flexandflip.com.
And I want to say, Danny, for anybody, that's looking to, just chase their goals and be, to help them kind of get to where they want to be, maybe physically, in the gym, or kind of get to this like-minded mindset that we're talking about, hit me up. I nothing I'm selling I'm just, putting out there, my stuff, what I do. I've had some success in a different arena, but it helps me in my head. And I think it's important for a lot of folks to take care of themselves and get strong and healthy and make that a focus in their life. Start your day, wake up, start your day strong and focus. And I think that's going to make a big difference for you, your life and your business, your flipping business, anything in real estate or anything in life for that matter.
Awesome. Good stuff. Everybody check it out. And is that the best place for everybody to reach you? Is that website, or do you have somewhere else?
Yeah, well, Flex and Flip, flexandflip.com. You can also reach me at paul@delpozogroup.com. That's my real estate business website. You can reach me that way, or, look me up on social media. Hit me up on Facebook. I put up some stuff, and if I can help you, encourage you in any which way, to wake your butt up and go to the morning, go to the gym in the morning and get it done. So, you can kick ass that day. I would love to do that, keep you accountable. Let's do this.
Yeah. And you're in the Flip Pilot group, right? On Facebook?
Yeah. Well, you'll find it everywhere.
All right, everybody. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Paul. Really appreciate it. It was great talking to you, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yep. Have a good one.